Right.
So, we got that kind of pushback. Did anybody else experience any kind of pushback or?
I feel like I still experience kind of like what you were saying with the kids, like, it's like, oh, it's just this. It's not really showing anything, and I'm just like, yes, it is. Like, no, that's too adult rated for my children. Like, and so I feel like my family has really kind of just accepted. Like my mom is still. She's not practicing Catholic, but it's still there, and she brings it up, and it's not very much pushback. We did get a lot of pushback from our in-laws, and things that they would do, or like sometimes to the point where I wouldn't even like to allow my kids to be watched by them. Not that I didn't trust them, but I didn't know what they were allowing them to do as far as what they were watching, because my kids would come home and be like, well, we were allowed to watch this. I was like, well, you did what? And I feel like things have gotten better, and there's been more respect as to, because it even came to the point where it's like, same thing like you said, like, oh, well, it's our house. We can watch what they can watch whatever. And it's like, no, but at the end of the day, they're my kids. And, and if you can't respect my rules, then maybe they can't come over. And of course there was some headbutting and stuff like that. I think now even it's a little calmer, but we still get looks like we're crazy. We get also looks like we're stricter or things like that. And I'm just like, but it's not that I'm stricter, I'm crazy. Is it that I want to, I don't fully shield my children. I do, let them know bits and pieces of the world. We have talks because they eventually they see these things. They go to school and stuff like that. But if I can avoid it in my household, then I'm going to avoid it in my household. Right. Because whatever goes into the ears and eyes. So I think I get more so. We get a lot more pushback with the way we raise our children, as opposed to us following Christ. There is sometimes where it's just like, with certain things when we say, well, we have this going on, or we have to, like, I serve on Sunday, and they're kind of like rolling of the eyes. Like, you just can't miss church. Like, So that kind of pushback.
Track scene.
So I was thinking when Melissa was speaking that for me, I never really had any real pushback. As a matter of fact, the more I thought about it, we were probably among the last. My husband's family, they were all Christians. The women, family of women, and starting with his mother, she died in 1989, and she was 80. They all loved the Lord. That was the thing. And so when we accepted Christ, it was like, it was like the angels in heaven were shouting, because these sinners have seen the light. But and I was thinking also that at the same time, it's like nothing is ever happenstance with the Lord. He has your path, and if you stick reasonably to it, He will just kind of lead you along. So at the same time that we accepted Christ, at my job, there were a lot of people who were giving their lives to the Lord. And we got to the point where we would get together during the day, like on our breaks or maybe at lunchtime. Oh, wow. We were allowed to be in one of the conference rooms, which were very private. And there might on a given day be 8 or 9 of us in there praying. And more more people, it was as though God was bringing people who either knew the Lord or were hungry for the Lord. Wow. So as time passed, more and more people that were accepting Christ, and my job had a lot of people at that time, had a lot of people that loved the Lord. And I recall when I was looking for a church, one of the secretaries in the office, and I can't think of his name, he was a friend of yours, he died as a young man. It was a pastor.
Oh, it was a pastor?
In Delaware.
George Hilton. Yes. Pastor Hilton.
She actually was going to his church, and I said, we're looking for the church we were going to. We had decided we weren't happy with because some things were said about other people. And I knew enough to know, I've never liked gossip. So I knew enough to know that was gossip and that was wrong. And the people they were talking about were people that we had interacted with and who I really thought loved the Lord. I mean, that was demonstrated by their lives. Anyway, so we decided we'd find another church. And I went to, her name was Deborah. I went to Deborah and I said, do you know any churches in New Jersey? And that's when she told me about her church, which was in, I believe, Claymont, Delaware or something. Anyway, it was in Delaware. And she said, no, but I'll talk to my pastor. So that next, I guess maybe a weekend passed or something, and she came back to me and she told me about a church that was at that time meeting in Highland High School. And that was, we started going to, it was Living Waters. Okay. We started going there, and just like Melissa said, the first time, that's how I learned about being welcomed. That was the warmest bunch of people that I ever encountered up until that point. Our family was very warm. We're a family that hugs, so everybody hugged. But strangers, not so much. But when you walked in that church, it was just like the love of the Lord was there, and they embraced you literally and figuratively. And we developed a whole group of like-minded friends. So for me, the pushback, I never really felt the pushback as a young Christian. Maybe, I don't know what that would have done in terms of my walk, but because I never encountered it, I was hungry. There were people to lead us in Bible study. There were people that just wanted to we would get together every Sunday. There was maybe about anywhere from 10 to 20 adults. We would get together at our friends Joe and Julie's house, and we would all just hang out. The kids would be there. The house would be overrun with children, and they would just be running wild. And we just had a good time eating and fellowshipping together. And that was my experience as a young Christian. And like I said, not really receiving any real pushback.
That's awesome.
So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Lisa, what about you?
Well, my first pushback when I first joined was actually my husband. It was so funny because when we first got here, he wasn't too sold on it, and he was so funny. He's like, "Well, I don't feel it. I don't feel it." But we all know him now that he actually God help out because we both love football, and because of a football bet. We never bet money, just bits up. But I told him that if my team won, he had to come to church for a full month. And God blessed me because it was 5 Sundays that month. So he's still like, that's not fair, divine intervention. But so he wasn't too much of a pushback. I just think he was just not ready yet. God was already nudging him. He just wasn't ready yet. So, but our family's not that big. On my side is my 3 children, my sister, my cousin Beth, and my mom, of course. And my mom's just always refers to me as, oh, she's just religious. I said, Mom, it's a relationship. So, but that's who she is. She's Catholic. She's not going to go from that. And she's good. I mean, she'll let Steve and I pray with her. My three children, in fairness to them, they weren't brought up in a household with religion. My former spouse didn't practice anything, and I didn't either. So, I think in fairness to them, it's kind of hard. So Steve and I just try to be a good example, and that's the only thing we can do. God has moved in my oldest son's life for the past, I think it's going on 4 months now. Every morning he sends me devotionals.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I just get a big smile every time I think of it. And then, so we just pass them back and forth. And sometimes we comment on them. Christopher, he's got a lot going on there. And Nicole, she's the funny one. That's my I call her Colio. That's my girl. She don't mind. As a matter of fact, this Christmas, I got the boys an action comic book. It's Bible, but it's biblical. So I say, and I thought, like, because I'm introducing it, I said, hey, how would you feel if I did this? And she's like, oh, I'm fine with it. So the doors slowly is opening. And she had made a comment one time, like, because when we have get-togethers, she goes, are your church people going to be there? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's my family. And she goes, well, I just don't feel sometimes when they're there, you kind of forget us. I'm like, I don't forget you. It's just I wasn't trying to incorporate you. So she's a little hard, but I understand where hers is coming from. So it's going to be just prayer. I did lose a close friend that we were friends. Matter of fact, we met because both of us are survivors from domestic violence, and that's how we had a friendship. We were really close, but the closer I got with the church, the further I felt her pulling. You know, now I still stay in contact. I didn't totally write her off because that's not who I am. But it was really hard for her to deal. And she's like, oh, you're just spiritual. I'm like, no. It's more than that.
It's a relationship.
So it's a relationship. So, So, it's expected. And I know just with prayer and time, I've had pushback at my job constantly, but it's funny, all those who push back, I am the first person they'll come to when they need prayer.
Exactly.
They're like,
that's what I was going to bring up next. Exactly.
This is going on. Can you pray for me? I'm like, sure. Yes. I certainly may. I certainly can. Next question.
That's funny. That was the next question I was going to throw out there. It's so funny that even though people might give us a little pushback or might think we're a little crazy, when things get shaky in their lives, they will come to us and ask us to pray. Have you had that experience in your lives where you've tried to minister to people and they're like, okay, but that big something happens and they're like, can you pray for me? And that's just like, yeah, I can pray for you. What an opportunity. And I think I've heard the saying, and let me get it right, preach the gospel, when necessary, use words. I think a lot of times, especially when we're ministering to our families, because they knew us back when,
Right.
they have to see the fruit. They have to see Christ lived out in us. And I remember one of my best friends, when I first got saved, she was living raggedy, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And I was trying to minister to her, and she was just doing her thing. And I remember one day she called me. She ended up moving to Vegas, and she called me. She said, Lisa, you're not going to love me anymore, are you? I said, why wouldn't I love you? You're my friend. I'll always love you. And whenever she had issues, she would call, and I would get a chance to, just kind of encourage her and pray with her. Well, finally, she called one day, and I was able to lead her to the Lord. And that was just the biggest blessing. And it was just that she had saw the consistency that it was serious to me. It was real. This Jesus thing was real to me. Right. And she had come to visit, and I think she could feel the peace that was in the household.